Remembrance Day was 2 days ago. So in honor of that, I'm going to tell you 2 war stories. Not glorifications of war, but 2 stories that were told to me by my relatives that they happened to. And afterwards I'll tell you what I think we can all remember. The first story is about my cousin Alvin, a prairie boy from Saskatchewan who, when the call came to take on the evil Nazi Empire, Alvin joined the Navy, becoming a sailor on the HMCS Ottawa, a Canadian ship that in September of 1942 was torpedoed and sunk by a German U-boat 800 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. 114 hands went down with the Ottawa, but Cousin Alvin wasn't one of them. Instead, he spent several hours floating in the Atlantic Ocean, hoping to be rescued, desperately yelling, "I'm over here! Help me! I'm over here!" Eventually, Alvin was heard and he got picked up. And when he got on board the rescuing ship, a British sailor said to him, "You're a lucky bugger. You were so loud out there, we thought there was a whole party is floating. If we'd known there was only one, we'd have had to leave you, mate. Too dangerous to stop for just one." 58 years later, Cousin Alvin was in palliative care in New Westminster, dying from stomach cancer. So question, what goes through the mind of a young person when they're facing imminent death and hoping, maybe this one time I can get lucky? And what goes through the mind of an elderly person when they're facing imminent death, knowing, one time I did get lucky? Perhaps it's that bill has finally come due. The second story is about my cousin Charlie from Cape Breton. When the call came to give Adolf Hitler a good, quick, swift kick in the balls, Cousin Charlie joined the Air Force, hoping to become a pilot because, as he told me, all the nice girls like the guys who are pilots. But unfortunately, Cousin Charlie's eyesight wasn't good enough, so he became a navigator on a de Havilland Mosquito, a 2-seat, twin-engine night fighter plane. And on a particular night over France in 1944, a German plane snuck up behind them and da-da-da-da-da, down the Mosquito started to go. And the pilot looked at Charlie and he said, "We're going to have to jump." So out Charlie went. And after his parachute deployed and he was floating downward, Charlie looked up for a second parachute, but he didn't see one. And when he landed, he was so exhausted physically and mentally from what had just happened that he lay down, rolled up in his parachute, and went to sleep. A few hours later, he woke up to find that it was dawn and he'd landed in a farm field shrouded in a low fog. But he could just make out a road, so he walked towards it. And when he got to the road, he heard a sound, faint at first, ting, 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 growing louder, ting, ting, till out of the fog came a young French girl leading a cow by a rope with a bell around its neck. Ting, ting. And she stopped and stared at Charlie, and he stared at her, and then she looked up at the sky, looked back down and said, "Vous tremblez? Vous tremblez? Oui, tremblez." She motioned for Charlie to follow her, and she took him to her family's modest farmhouse, where they offered him what little they had, a bit of coffee, some bread. And Charlie thought about the pilot. They'd been friends, and that pilot, he was everything you'd expect of a fighter pilot. Handsome, charming, dashing, now dead. A little later, the local gendarme arrived and it was indicated that Charlie should go with him. So Charlie followed the gendarme to another farmhouse where there was a lot of noise coming out of it. Sounded like yelling or arguing. Charlie wasn't sure. But when he went in the farmhouse, there was the pilot. A broken ankle from the fall, drunk on that farmer's homemade wine, laughing it up, having a great time. People get lucky. And that's the takeaway from this. Alvin and Charlie, they were no better than anybody in this room. But they got lucky, surviving a plane crash and a ship sinking. So when you're in some dark point in your life, know that you can get lucky. You will get lucky. But when you do get lucky, remember, you may just be postponing a bill that one day will come